я знаю все равно что-то.
Доброго дня, дорогие участники.
Today, all participants of the Marathon of Reading Chaitanya Charitamrita.
Наша рубрика «Вопросы-ответы» и наш почетный гость.
Today, our honorable guest who is going to be answering the questions is Bhakti Bhagavatamrita Kesava Maharaj. He's a leader of the Southern Russia. He's a sannyasi, and he's been studying philosophy and culture of Vedic culture. He's also teaching psychology and working together. He also teaches Bhakti Shastra. And I will give him the microphone. Hello, I welcome all the participants of our marathon. This is our second time we're meeting today. This morning we discussed Chaitanya Charitamrita. Today we can discuss the questions about spiritual openness. A lot of people along the spiritual path, especially those who I run into, a lot of people who come onto the spiritual path, they don't become open after a while, the path of openness. They believe in something. I should come to something, but they don't really get any actual experience of that. Why is it a secret thing? Everything's just happening on the surface level. Some people become disappointed, and they don't really actually achieve anything. But the secret thing actually falls into the position of a person. If a person is an actual disciple, and they can understand all the different things that are happening in their life. And they can overcome different obstacles because of their devotion. And this is the secret of our attitude. When we start feeling bad about things, we start going back to our old habits and things. But if we have good association in a good position of a student, and we can be open about things, and we can understand these lessons that God sent us in all of our lives. We can see God's love in this, then we can become closer to Him and enter into a mutual relationship with Him. The Chaitanya Charitamrita brings us into how to really go into relationship with God. Thanks to these writings, we can gain the belief and the qualification so that we can correctly act in our devotional lives. If anyone wants to ask any questions, I'll be happy to answer any of the questions. Thank you so much. Our first question is, what inspires you about the Chaitanya Charitamrita? What inspires me is the extreme bliss, all the blissful emotions. You don't even hear how, you don't even feel it, how this different parts of the story are going, and then you're drawn into it. And it also goes very deep into your consciousness. It's very elevated feelings, but there's also very deep meaning, and so that you can accept it into your life. It's very natural, actually. This is my realization about this, about Chaitanya Charitamrita. Even if I don't have the right qualifications, something will come about of it. It is alive. Thank you very much. Please tell us. What are the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, and how can we accept this into our life? We can look at the teachings of Lord Chaitanya into three different things. The Sambandha, it opens up the real position of the soul, and our how we can get a connection through devotional service. We can correctly look at our lives and the lives of different people, and we can open up a relationship with Him. All of our different relationships, negative, positive, neutral, and then we can do this with the practice, the abhideya, the process, the different elements of chanting the names of God, the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, the most powerful prayer that there is. And thanks to this practice, it opens up a taste for this relationship, these different sweetnesses. And because, thanks to all this, a person gets prayojana. It's the result of love. It gives us love. We can feel actual happiness. And we can compare this to, we get a piece of pie, and we can see that we're connected to this cake, this pie. This is the connection of this. We see it. This is the first part. Then we enter into the process. We start to eat it. We start to feel some sort of enlivening aspect. And because of this, thanks to the Sambandha Abhideya and Prayojan that Lord Chaitanya has given us, we can start to understand philosophy of Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva, that everything is one and yet different. This is the perfect philosophy that helps us understand the highest and the most perfect and pure understanding. And what Lord Chaitanya gave us is love. Can a person actually feel what Lord Chaitanya felt? We can feel something similar, but we can't completely imitate what Lord Chaitanya felt. Lord Chaitanya is at one time Radha and Krishna. It's the personality of manifestation of his higher enjoyment. We can become closer to it and live through get a similar kind of mood. But if we connect to the energy of Srimati Radharani, we can understand that it is actually Srimati Radharani. And then Lord Chaitanya also felt all these moods of separation that Srimati Radharani also felt. I didn't find you, I am so far away from you. This is the mood. This is what Srimati Radharani experienced also. Therefore, more or less, we can't completely feel or go through what Srimati Radharani goes through. But even just a drop, that even a drop of the living entity, he attains unbelievable happiness. And then we can also get in contact with this love, and we also can experience this love. Can you please clarify that if we have a connection with Srimati Radharani, can you please clarify how we can gain this mood? We need to accept a spiritual teacher, a spiritual master, and through Nityananda, Balaram, and Lord Nityananda gives us this mood of service. And we get happiness in the mood of service. We need to understand purity and correctly follow pure practice in our lives. We can also see how the spiritual teacher goes through this mood as well. And the spiritual teacher continually gives us intelligence to do this, so we can go further and further. And we can understand eventually our role in the spiritual world.
Спасибо большое.
Thank you so much.
И у нас следующий вопрос.
Next question.
Рамананда Пури не смог находиться в обществе преданных, поэтому он ушел из Пури. Это было из-за оскорблений преданных. А был ли у вас в жизни опыт
Pramananda Puri
таких преданных, как
couldn't. He had to leave the association of devotees. Why did he have to leave? Was it because some sort of Ramachandra Puri had to leave? Why did he have to leave? I had an interesting experience. Inside every one of us, there's Ramachandra Puri and Ishvara Puri. One mood flips us to another mood, and then we're going in between these two, and then one time we wake up and we're seeing shortcomings of everything, and then we're going into a mood of service. In the beginning of the 1990s, we had an ashram for students. The student monks live there. They serve God together, worship God together. There was very many members of this ashram. It was very, in this kind of, it was very difficult because there's so many people. All space was occupied there. Everyone has their kind of, their habits and from their past lives. And there was one person who, he was from an intelligent, cultured family. He was used to there being always some sort of order, and it really affected him how things were in disarray. And he would always get upset and tell the devotees that let's keep the order together. And they would go to tell senior devotees. He would say to him, "Look, he has good qualities. He knows what order is, and you should listen to him. Do we understand what is order?" And he would make some sorts of shelves and stuff so that he'd put things away. And he would try to be a good example for everybody. But he started to become obsessed that nothing changed right away. There was an unbelievable amount of people there. They were all shoulder to shoulder. And therefore, he began to have different kinds of problems with different people. You guys are living like pigs. He started to become kind of mean. And he said he was called eventually by the senior devotees and told him that you mustn't talk to devotees like this. I'm probably going to go home and relax a little bit. I'm going to go home. I personally brought him home. He told me something that was extremely dangerous. And he said that materialists are better than these so-called spiritualists. I really felt this. It was a very bad sign. He fell down and he fell away from devotees. Then we got a letter from him about a year later. we're in a room that was very smoked and very dirty. We found him in a. So what happened was he went home. Something inside of me, what happened? I'm just gonna practice myself. Something didn't let me come back. He wanted to come back, but he couldn't. He tried to practice himself, but he didn't feel any kind of taste. He started to feel, I don't have a taste. He was trying to force himself to do it. But you need to have some sort of taste in order to continue doing it. Because it satisfies you. He met with some friends that invited him to some sort of party. I'm going to go there and preach to them. He started to go to these friends. It was a birthday party or something, and they were drinking. He didn't drink before that. And when he went to this, during this time, there's all sorts of different gangster bandits groups. There's all these tendencies. They would trade different hats, and they would steal hats. And one of their friends, I don't have a very good hat. Let's find a new hat. He's going to take the bad thing. And his friend said, go do what you want to do, but I'm going to go my own way. He tried to stop them, but they started beating this man. They were beating up him, a few people. Somebody got out a knife and started to stab him. The police came at that moment. They took everyone to the police station, and they all were indicted on being part of the crime. And they were all charged with murder. So this person was writing from prison now, this old devotee. He was in solitary confinement or something. Oh no, he was there was a lot of person in the prison. There was many people smoking, and they're all sick with tuberculosis. I don't know if I'll ever get out of this prison. This was the result of my offenses. Please, I ask you all, he wrote, I ask you all to forgive me. My best time of my life was when I was living in the ashram. And I just pray that I will live through this, so that I can, when I come out of prison, I can crawl to you and ask you to forgive me for my offenses. I read it to everybody, and everyone was so surprised. They could see how dangerous offenses are. And this is what happened. Everyone should be very careful. It's an extremely dangerous thing along our spiritual path. This is my experience. There's been other happenings, but this is the most brightest.
Как искоренить в себе склонность к индивидуализму, который мешает мне или даже не дает сотрудничать с преданными?
How can I overcome this feeling of individualism that doesn't help me enter into mutual relationships with devotees? Thank you for this question. This mood of individualism lives in the hearts of all of us. It's a sickness. when we put ourselves in the center, we start to accept life as this is, I'm in the middle. I start to work under the order of my mind and senses. You act under what I like this and I don't like that. I begin to judge everything from this position of myself. I start to judge others and look at them and what they're doing. I feel distance between them. I don't feel connection with them. But the more egocentric a person is, the less he has compassion for others. This is the opposite of a God-centered life. But if we listen to different things, we can see that there's a different way to look at life. There's a higher power that's going through everything and supporting everything. That nothing belongs to me. We can actually realize nothing belongs to me. We start to see everything on the other side. And everything, when we start to look in this other way, everything changes. I'm not the center of the world. I'm not the center of creation. I'm just one part of the Lord. I'm a servant. I have a specific role in all of this. And a person can find, he can start to serve in this way. He starts to transform. This is the first example of this. If you start to hate other people, this is a sign of this. You start to separate people into friends and enemies. This is a sign of this kind of life. But slowly but surely we get over this. And we start to see Eka, the unification of everything. Everything's connected. That we see the animals, birds, the plants. It's one organism. And in relation to this, when we start acting in goodness, we start to act correctly and see our role and be satisfied with that role, and we're become a so-called, so to speak, healthy cell in this organism. And all this kind of bad attitudes come from our egocentrism. But slowly but surely, through the process of hearing and chanting, we get experience of how to actually see ourselves in light of everything. Thank you very much. Another question? If we feel like we don't have enough Krishna in life, can we understand this as love and separation of Krishna, or is this just a false sentiment? Even if material things draw us, we're drawn to material things in the world, this is a sign of separation from Krishna. We're trying to fulfill this in the different place, though. You can give a rough example. There's a person that you love, and that person leaves you. How do you fill that void? Do you just drink and forget about it? But imagine this is with the same thing with Krishna. We destroyed this relationship with our incorrect moods. But when we start to go into the mood of devotion, we can actually start to feel the completeness of the actual relationship. Just like in this morning time, we always have this meeting and separation, meeting and separation, meeting and separation. And how do we actually achieve this internal completeness? That we need to sit in complete relationship. Don't mix up the moods of not feeling incomplete with separation. We feel sometimes that somebody should always owes us something. But we'll practice and we'll start to feel. We'll enter into devotional service and spiritual life. All of this will give us a realization of that. Even a drop of it will give us a feeling of completeness and happiness. If we get happiness, we can start to have real relationships with people. We're not trying to just get something out of them, use them. We're not going to exploit other people. This is a result of the transformation. I don't know what kind of conclusion to make out of the feelings, but it's a good barometer that it can show you how we should feel, or how we can correct ourselves. We can eventually begin to increase our relationship with Krishna. Thank you.
Если как уточнение, то вот эта любовь в разлуке, которая уже истинная будет, она будет исходить из полноты, правильно? Она будет какая-то, с оттенком счастья.
Is it correct to understand that this love in separation will actually has a shade of happiness? Meeting is a mood of happiness. It's a very interesting thing, very interesting philosophy. It's an interesting experience. Yes, if a devotee is unhappy, he's crying, always crying and complaining about something, he's arguing with people, this is a sign that there's an absence of actual spiritual emotions in the heart. He starts to maybe have problems with his against his spiritual master, even, or other devotees. We're trying to give, and we're not trying to take. Because we're always in the mood of egocentrism, we'll be constantly coming in and out of it. But we can reset ourselves by being around other people who can help us, and reading books of Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada's books help us to reconfigure ourselves. And we can actually start to naturally do things. Everything becomes very simple. If we're not in the right position, not in the right mood, then everything becomes difficult. This is the mood of egocentrism. Thank you very much. This is a mood of lust. That everybody give me something. It's not a mutual exchange of love.
Спасибо большое.
Thank you.
И вот следующий вопрос.
Next question.
Как различать духовные и материальные эмоции?
How can we
Как освободиться от влияния материальных эмоций и научиться различать духовные
how can we understand the difference between the difference between spiritual and material emotions, and how can we actually feel spiritual emotions and understand it's in connection with Krishna?
И нам нужно просто наши как бы вот чувства занять в служении Господу.
Or less, we need to engage our feelings into the service of the Lord.
И свои чувства вовлекать тоже в этот процесс служения.
And our
Постепенно они очистятся.
if we're just engaged in the process, then sooner or later our feelings will totally, if we're sincere.
Очищаются и в конце концов становятся духовными.
And in the end, we'll actually start feeling spiritual feelings.
Преданные иногда делают ошибку, они просто подавляют свои чувства. Конечно же,
Devotees often make the mistake that they try to force their feelings, which makes them, it's actually really nervous feelings.
это все в рамках принципов должно быть.
Everything should be in the frame of principles.
Как чувствовать благодарность,
You should feel gratitude.
преданным, да, то есть это чувство
You should feel
определенное, чувствовать любовь.
this feeling of gratitude, of feeling love for others.
Просто
There's a certain
эти
spiritual feeling.
чувства соединяйте с Кришной. Вы понимаете,
These
что
feelings
это
come from Krishna. They connect us with Krishna.
вы теперь как частичек Кришны еще.
And we understand we're a part of Krishna.
С Кришной. Я свои чувства
I'm connecting with Krishna.
с ним. Вот. И так постепенно
And slowly but surely,
как бы, ну, практику преданного служения, постепенно наши
this
чувства,
practice of
ум,
devotional service,
вот преданное служение, они
our mind becomes engaged
необходимо
and
также получать
distracted by
поможет нам
these real emotions.
свои взгляды, да? Вот
We don't have to look at things over in the wrong way.
наши материальные чувства в духовные.
We start to change our material emotions into spiritual emotions.
Вот и вначале мы это регулируем, свои чувства,
In the beginning, we have to regulate our senses,
становятся спонтанными, когда они очистятся.
and then slowly but surely they become spontaneous.
Проще всё. Мы спонтанно будем следовать принципам любви. Но вначале нужно это...
We need to follow the principles of love.
Спасибо большое.
Thank you.
У нас вопрос по отношениям.
Question about
Бывают
relationships.
очень сложные отношения в жизни, когда ты
Sometimes we have
чувствуешь,
very
что не всё
difficult
хорошо,
relationships
есть
that
какой-то нераскрытый конфликт.
there's not everything's alright, and there's some sort of hidden
Нет
conflicts.
возможности открыто как-то прояснить этот вопрос.
How do you can you
Как
explain
решаются
this?
такие моменты в жизни, чтобы это было в сознании Кришны?
How do we get through these so that we can see them in light of Krishna consciousness?
Решается, когда кто-то
Conflicts are resolved
из членов, а лучше оба, как бы члены этого конфликта переходят в настроение учеников.
when the participants in the conflict get in the mood of
Знаете, я хочу пытаться
student.
решить конфликт, чтобы объяснить ему, что он не прав, например, или она не права, или в общем,
instead of being in the mood of I'm right and you're wrong,
пытаемся объяснить, что
we try to learn something.
я хороший, а в
Or
результате
I'm good.
хуже. Потому что в этом случае мы
If we try to say that I'm good and you're bad,
с ожиданием определенным идем.
we have some expectations. We don't want to change ourselves, we want to change others. This doesn't resolve a conflict. The correct position to be in is to configure ourselves in the mood of a student. The Lord is trying to teach us something. This person is trying to teach us something. I want to explain it. I want to understand. I want to find something. I want to change. And therefore, the first way to solve a conflict is
без вот этого претензии попытаться вступить в диалог.
the first thing is to try to enter into a conversation with the person. Don't try to don't try to be in a mood of using people, but in a mood of how this person is dear to you, how this person helps you.
Сказать, что ценного, за что вы цените этого человека, чтобы было ощущение, что вы вот
You should tell what you value in this person.
сторону, да, в этом человеке, не только как бы какой-то вот, как вам кажется, недостаток.
Don't just look at their shortcomings.
Что вас, как бы, что приносит вам боль, ну, вот,
You understand what's making you feel upset.
потом рассказать, что вот произошла вот эта ситуация, и я
And look at the situation, and I felt this way. I felt this hurt in this situation.
больно, вот так вот я воспринял. И я
And this is how that's how I saw it.
в чем же мой урок, да? То есть,
And I'm trying to understand what's the lesson.
конечно, хотелось, чтобы наши отношения были вот, ну, в этом случае вот так, потому что я вот так воспринимаю, это моя боль. То есть я не обвиняю, я говорю о своих чувствах.
You just need to talk about your emotions, not about what the other person did, but how you feel about certain things.
Вот, ну, как-то его обвинить в чем-то. То есть вы
Don't
пытаетесь-
blame the other person for anything.
Вот, он видит ученика, который пытается
He'll
разобраться в
see
чувствах,
you trying to be a student in this situation.
и в то же самое время высказывают, как бы хотелось бы, чтобы вы чувствовали себя хорошо. И тогда в сердце
And see that,
человека
and then
начинает
that other person
меняться, и
will
начинает понимать, то есть он тоже становится
already start to change moods, and will start to change,
вас,
and will actually see you.
что я, оказывается, своими словами боль принес.
Whoa, and you'll see that maybe I actually hurt this person with my words.
Я понял, я буду по-другому, да, например.
I understand, maybe I'll act a little.
Такое прояснение.
This is a healthy way of
Часто
explaining.
не хватает нам зрелости так прояснить, потому что мы сразу переходим на
But when we're young, when we're inexperienced,
вот когда
we
ты-
start to do this. We say, "Oh, you did this to me."
Соответственно, у того вызывает, сразу возникает реакция
We start to get on the we start to
вот, а говорить именно
defend ourselves, and this is our reaction.
искать, как бы, вот, понимание.
But if we look inside ourselves, try to do that, to try to understand and get things together.
Можно это делать. Но этому
We can do
нужно
this.
научиться, если мы не
But
умеем.
we need to learn how to do this.
Если мы не умеем, тогда можно
But if we don't know how to,
кого-то опытного.
we need to ask somebody who is experienced devotee.
Есть даже целый такой комитет по разрешению конфликтов.
There's a whole organization of conflict resolution.
Помогать в этих ситуациях.
They can help in this different situations. And you can ask them,
Кто-то, кто вот опытен в этом, чтобы
who is experienced in this? They can help you.
правильно настроиться.
How can I properly configure myself?
Таким, как бы, ну, помочь разрешить эту ситуацию.
And how to solve this conflict? How to resolve this
Если
situation?
мы сами недостаточно зрелы в этом.
If we're not experienced enough in this,
Квалификацию, чтобы мы могли, потому что жизнь, она состоит из конфликтов. Конфликт — это то, что помогает нам расти.
our lives are actually made of conflicts, and these conflicts are actually the things that help us grow. Don't run away from them. We need to accept them.
Помогает нам лучше узнать друг друга.
They help us understand each other.
Как бы вырасти, чтобы отношения стали, как бы, на другой уровень перешли.
And so that we go to a different level,
Но если мы
closer level.
проживаем, то тогда
If we don't correctly go through them and understand them, then
персональные
relationships become impersonal.
и это становится
And
препятствием.
as the years go by, it'll only get worse.
Спасибо большое.
Thank you very much.
А, Существует ли такое понятие внутренних границ личности? Или в позиции ученика мы позволяем всему происходить в нашей жизни как воле Господа?
Is there anything that we can actually have in understanding this personal in our lives, or is we can understand that everything's happening on the will of God?
Мы как бы должны, с одной стороны, не раствориться в отношениях, то есть не потерять свою личность, да?
We shouldn't try to lose our personality, our individualism.
Или как бы семья даже, они всегда могут провоцировать на растворение нас. Хотя истинная семья, она всегда...
In a real family, there's
нас как личность. То есть поможет нам, наоборот,
we should help each other be individuals.
Ну, например,
But in the
вас всё
example
время
of
чтобы вы и это сделали, и то
that
сделали.
you do this and you do that and you do this and that and that,
И вы уже чувствуете, что
you already feel that
вы как бы рады служить, но с другой стороны вы
you're happy to help, but you also
часть своей
don't feel like you're fulfilling different parts of your personal life.
можете что-то делать для других, а при этом у вас есть задача какая-то, может быть, образование.
Maybe you have some sort of goal, a personal goal in your life, some sort of
служение.
talent you want to realize.
Вот что-то делаете, да, такое срочное, может быть, важное и срочное, но как раз
Maybe it's not that immediately you need to do it, but
дела вы игнорируете в результате.
But
У вас будет накапливаться чувство,
if you just try to do everything that everybody tells you without focusing on things,
растут претензии
on the big picture,
близким или вот людям, которые
that you'll start to become maybe even upset with those around
к
you,
разрушению отношений.
and it'll destroy your relationships.
Важно вот
Here it's very important to feel
как бы баланс
the balance,
и
correct balance.
нужно говорить нет
And sometimes you need to know how to say no. And they're worried about people that will become offended.
Сторона не нужен, здесь тоже. Вот. И если вы правильно это произносите, то вас всегда поддержат.
Understand it properly, then you'll always become happy there.
Поэтому в жизни всегда будет этот вызов. И мы должны научиться.
We always have this calling that we need to orientate ourselves correctly. And we need to fulfill our desires from a certain point. But also be participating in society. We experienced person knows how to keep a balance with this. If we're just doing everything that everything tells us, we lose our individuality. So there's a balance. Thank you. How can we inspire devotees to become more serious in their devotional service? In different relationships, it's between those younger than us, those equal, and those older than us, those more senior. How do we cannot feel this without feeling like we're judging others? If we want to inspire somebody, we just need to be a good example. If we're inspired in spiritual life, then we can share this inspiration with others, with those younger than us. It's such happiness, it's such joy to wake up and to chant the holy names of the Lord every day. I want to share this with you. Let's do it together. And then we'll call others and support each other. I also want, they'll start to become inspired and say, yeah, I want that too. And this is how we share this. If we're feeling how to share this inspiration with senior devotees, we can ask some kind of questions. We can show them our kind of questions are serious by asking questions. If some senior devotees started to neglect something in their lives, I can't tell them that you should do this. Don't have expectations. Just be a good example. If we're just trying to give instructions to everyone, then that is manipulation. Thank you very much. Next question.
Скажите, пожалуйста, что собой представляет ложное эго и для чего оно душе? Когда душа попадает в материальный мир, объясните, пожалуйста, механизм его формирования ложного эго.
Please explain how the false ego acts in this world. How does it enter into this world? How does it influence our mind and that? And how do we find the truth in it? We always have an ego. It always says, that is me. I am the ego. Sometimes we can have a false conception of who we are, but there's also a correct, truthful identity. We have to ask ourselves, what's the purpose of our lives? If we have a false conception of our existence, we'll get mixed up into everything. If a person, just like as a person is an actor, he's acting in a certain role. You should act. You should go into the role, become the role, and he wrote in the role. He comes out of the theater, he's not going to be like Napoleon after that.
он не Наполеон, он думает, что он Наполеон, никак не выйдет из роли.
He can't get out of his role.
Ложное отождествление.
This is the false
И вот это
identity, identifying us ourselves as this.
материальный мир, где люди,
This is the same thing in this
которые
material world.
впали в это невежество.
This is our ignorance. Who am I?
Как бы в основе ложного эго является
On the foundation of the false ego is ignorance.
личное состояние. Я
We have an
тоже
egocentric
могу быть
mood.
отцом, я тоже могу быть Богом, другими словами.
I can be
Это
God, in other
ложное
words.
эго.
This
То
is
есть,
false ego.
это материальный покров, который
It is a material covering
позволяет живому существу
that allows
почувствовать,
the
что я есть вот то, чем на
it
самом деле
allows us living entity to feel that I am this body, for example.
это возникает в материальном мире, то есть когда вот это невежество души
It happens in the material world,
материальный мир, душа, и тогда здесь обретает эту материальную оболочку.
and we get caught up in this material swamp.
Эго с другими элементами возникает,
With different elements that we have the body, different elements of the body, for example.
Вначале оно получает возвышенное, очень чистое тело, первое, например, тело Господа Брахмы или какого-то.
They can get a very elevated body, like a body of Lord Brahma.
Если я все равно остаюсь в центре,
But if I'm still in the center, my feelings in the center, we're going to continue to degrade ourselves. And this is the very strong influence of the false ego. And we'll get more and more lower and lower species of life. There's all the 8,400,000 forms of life. But then the spiritual ego comes in. It's like, hey, what are you doing? You're not this body. You're connected with God actually. And as they wake up and they understand everything. There's reincarnation and all these things. And real ego starts to come through. Start to feel a spiritual awakening. Brahmabhuta means connection. Prasanatman, that we feel bliss. And therefore, we start thinking about the future and the past. We have real happiness here now. I don't have any expectations of anything. I don't require anything from anyone. I already have everything. This is our real ego. Devotees get it through the process of practicing devotional service, through associating, for listening, getting experience from different devotees. We start to reconfigure ourselves in our lives. We start to get the correct opit of Brahmabhuta Prasanatma, the happiness of the soul. We're trying to change our roles, and we start to change our role in our life. We're not running after the objects of our senses. We use it correctly in the service of the Lord. That a different mood in our life comes out. I hope that was understandable. If you need to further explanation, please write. What's the difference? What's the difference between serving and being served? Can you explain more of this?
Например, преданные его, предположим, природа в этом мире, учителя, предположим, да? Учителя в детских классах где-то.
For example, there's a teacher in a kid's class.
Он становится преданным, или она, да? То есть, и она начинает думать, так, вот это моя природа, как теперь я должен как учитель служить?
The little kid starts beginning to wonder how can I help my teacher? How can I serve my teacher?
Я должен так служить, чтобы вот эти частички Бога, они тоже как бы возвышались, они развивали качества необходимые, чтобы они стали тоже, в конце концов, слугами Бога, пробудились.
That we start to see how
Вот, поэтому я
how
не
people
вижу,
can
как бы, вот,
how can I serve these people so that they can start to see themselves as parts of God.
Они начинают хитрить, они боятся и так далее. Я попытаюсь помочь им пробудиться.
I can help them wake up this thing, their real nature.
Вот, и таким образом, когда я
In this way,
служу, то есть
when we're
я
serving,
начинаю рассматривать тогда какие-то ресурсы, которые у меня
I start
есть.
to look at what kind of services I have, what kind of resources I have.
Ну, например,
What can I do?
Приходит какие-то деньги в благодарность, да, то есть за
Maybe some money starts to come in.
Но такой преданный
from-
воспринимает это не как
Devotees don't accept that money as
пойду наслаждаться, он понимает, что
as
это
money that I can enjoy with.
для того, чтобы я мог или могла продолжать свое служение.
They see that I can continue doing my service.
Мог продолжать свое служение. Я могу купить на эти деньги какие-то учебники,
I can
какие-то
buy
еще что-то, вот,
textbooks and all sorts of things,
ресурсы, чтобы
different resources
мое
that
служение продолжать. И
my service continues.
мне начинают приходить и опять ресурсы какие-то. Меня начинают
And then
судить
other resources start to come.
и родители, и
Different students, different parents, and so on and so forth.
учебным заведением, да, то есть я становлюсь как бы специалистом востребованным, поэтому
I become a specialist on fulfilling
то есть
needs.
преданный вот он начинает как бы служить не ради плодов и денег.
Devotees aren't serving because of the fruits of their labor.
Вот этой важной как бы смыслом его жизни. Вот. А уже как бы ресурсы
They're already fulfilling-
уже как приходят.
They see need for resources, and they use them properly for those resources.
Центричное общество раньше. Сейчас мы потеряли это, даже непонятно, как можем вообще работать, не привязываясь к плодам.
Right now, we can't understand how can we not become attached to the fruits of our labor.
Средства, это как бы возможности, которые приходят, это как результат нашего служения.
We look at this as the result of our service.
Когда эта ценность возникает в сердце, то тогда человек начинает видеть, что
When
как
this,
бы перестает волноваться об этих плодах. Даже. Они как бы
when
сами
a person goes in this mood, he starts to worry about the
с
fruits.
нашими студентами, то есть меня представили как одного из преподавателей школы лидерства и
Да.
сотрудничества. Одна женщина у нас преданная.
I was a teacher in when I was serving in the mutual work and so on and so forth. There's one woman there that
Ну, она там, знаете, вот со всеми как бы, то есть ее задача это вот хранить эти деньги, вот стараться как можно
started thinking that I'm
больше,
gonna start to
больше.
save this money and do all sorts of things.
Роли.
I'm gonna
Вот
fulfill
её
my
никто
role.
не любил из-за этого на предприятии, вот, и
No one liked her.
И вот она приехала к нам в школу и начала изучать эти духовные взгляды на жизнь. И
But then she started to look at the spiritual world and started to change everything.
Я не хозяин этих
She
денег.
started to understand that I'm
Уже вот служить
not
немножко
the
помочь.
owner of this money, I'm just a servant of
У
it.
неё там на предприятии за 2-3 месяца
In about 2 or 3 months, she changed all completely.
предприятие начало лучше работать и значит доходы увеличиваться.
And then she started to change her mood, and then everything that we started to get changed, and we started to gain more money. And
Директор сказал,
I called the director and I said,
тебе увеличим зарплату, вот такая у тебя будет зарплата. И она такая,
what kind of, we're gonna give you a raise.
Нет, ты работай, как ты работаешь. Ты хорошо очень работаешь.
You're working very well, let's give you more money.
Просто повысили в 3 раза зарплату. Вот, и она просто удивляется. Она не стремилась к этому. Но она
We said we're gonna raise your pay for 3 times, and she wasn't expecting it at all.
пришло больше ресурсов.
And then she got more resources.
Кришна еще что-то хочет, чтобы мы как-то служили.
And Krishna, when he gets us more resources, he says that he wants us to do something else with that money.
Если когда приходят нам большие ресурсы,
If we're getting a lot of resources,
вот я мечтал, всё,
oh yes, everything's coming, it's everything I need, let's use it. When I said we lose our resources and we lose the spirit of service. Therefore, devotees, when they get resources, they understand this isn't mine. Different things come and I can properly use this in service. And I can see how to properly use everything. That this kind of intuition continually tries to go. Thank you for this question.
Спасибо большое.
Plus, thank you very much. Next question
Ну, видно, что жизненный.
is a very
В
life
настроении
question.
наставника есть критическое отношение к членам ятры. Как к этому относиться, ну, получается, тому, кто задает вопрос?
The leader, teacher of in a yatra seems kind of critical of different people. How can we understand this, and how can we grow beyond it? You need to understand, who is it? Is it a senior devotee, or is it somebody that's that? You need to understand that the leaders in the different communities, they're the secure. They save the spiritual moods of the yatra. But sometimes we need to feel that I'm just a servant. If they give you some sort of responsibility, there's this kind of temptation. We want to do everything faster. We want to make everything correct faster. We want to do everything correct, mood correct, everything right away. We want to push on it. We want to put pressure on it so that everything comes faster. But that doesn't make things happen that way. This is a mistake. We can't control anything. Can't control the situation. And we lose our qualifications. And then different negative emotions start to collect. But if a leader sees things that aren't shortcomings of people, they see it as like as a baby. It's like when a parent sees the baby, it's like, come on, you can walk, you can do it, you can walk. We as a teacher, we should believe that they can walk. The kids make the first steps, that everything's good, and they learn. You need to support them and help them learn to walk, and how to become a real devotee, in other words. There's different kind of different constructions of this, but we always need to look at something within ourselves. Look over, understand our internal moods. And don't make excuses and different things. Don't have too high of expectations. Just be grateful for what you have right now. Can you clarify the position of if a younger devotee and the senior devotee is critical, then the younger devotee should just observe this, right? You should understand that the senior devotee is also going through his own lessons. That there'll be sorts of different connections between this, of different. That they have shortcomings too, that they might not do something correctly. That you see some sort of disappointment in them. And we try to distance ourselves from this. We shouldn't do this. But if we see our instructor as a student, and then there's a talk with them, somebody that could teach us something and help us, so we can serve our coordinator and ourselves. We can help them and help us. Real sincere learning breeds more sincere learning.
обращать внимание, потому что нужно понять, что у них тоже есть свои наставники, есть свои...
They have, you understand that they have their own instructions, their own lessons that they're going through,
На своих сосредоточиться и
that they're focused on too.
слишком не идеализировать это все. Иначе
Don't try to idealize everything too much.
даже если Кришна станет нашим наставником, мы у него найдем как бы недостатки.
Even if Krishna becomes our instructor,
Спасибо.
he can help us.
Вопрос. Поясните, пожалуйста, что такое
Question, please.
шаранагати?
Please explain what Sharanagati is.
Как оно, получается, на уровне начинающего преданного проявляется, который еще...
How does this appear in the level of a beginning new devotee?
Спасибо большое. Да, шаранагати.
Sharanagati,
Шарана
Sharana
означает
means
как бы предание
surrender
цели, то есть это предание
to a certain goal,
высшей цели жизни.
to the higher goal of life.
Это определенное настроение, которое
It's a
оживляет.
specific
То есть, например,
mood that enlivens us.
то есть предание Богу, то ваша молитва будет наполнена как бы вот этой живой какой-то связью.
That if we have Sharanagati, then our prayers become completely enlivened.
Как бы насилие над собой совершает.
And if they're not, there's no Sharanagati, it feels like we're stamping on ourselves, we're putting pressure on ourselves. There's six parts of Sharanagati,
во всех этапах, но особенно в начале. Это
but there's the first ones in the beginning.
всего благоприятного для
Accept everything beneficial and reject those that are not beneficial.
как бы начиная с шаранагати.
This is how Sharanagati begins. When we want to surrender fully, what does that mean?
Принять что-то благоприятное для
We should accept those things that are good for it and reject those things that are bad for it.
для предания Богу возносить молитвы рано утром, то я даже если я как бы люблю поспать с утра, я как бы
Even if, like, for example, if we say, for example, we like to sleep in, that we can wake up early, and we reject those sleeping in so that we can wake up early.
долго спать,
It's not very good to sleep for too much time.
слишком поздно, это не
Or
благоприятно.
we're laying down too late, that's not very good.
Я не смогу вот
And we're not going to be able to wake up and do that.
благоприятного
And we're going to
вот этих
reject these things.
смотрения, может быть, телевизора на ночь, вот там
Looking at maybe watching TV at night,
вот затягивать
that's distracting us and it's kind of pulling away our consciousness.
это принятие каких-то интоксикаций,
Or maybe taking intoxication
сексуальные связи, это тоже
or sexual connections, illicit relationships.
какой-то вот внутренней своей какой-то развращенности.
Maybe we have some sort of kind of perverted things that happen to us.
Насилие над другими это тоже неблагоприятная вещь.
Also, committing violence on others,
Азартные игры это
hurting others.
как бы неблагоприятная вещь для преданности. Почему? Потому что азарт, он увлекает человека и заставляет его хитрить, то есть развивает вот это
Also, shouldn't want to cheat.
хитрости, которые
We shouldn't try to
в жизни тоже.
try to cheat doing things in life.
Вот таким образом мы следуем мы принимаем эти четыре
If we
как четыре запрета, как
we accept the four regulated principles,
это повторение Харе Кришна
but we, those are the things we should reject. But the things that we should accept is like chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra, and this helps us to further accept and then reject those that are good and bad for us. It helps us follow a more pure life. We put on clean clothes every day. These spiritual clothes. We put on tilak. We start to follow things in Vaishnava culture. Maybe there's other sorts of beneficial things in other societies. But while maybe we can't be able to give up everything right away, that we still build up our faith that we can do that. We feel grateful for the things that we can do. We feel protected with this. And it becomes more and more that our sincere surrender becomes more and more. That's in short.
Спасибо большое.
Thank you very much.
У нас такой вопрос,
Another question.
может быть он как вытекающий, да? Как быть инструментом в руках Кришны?
How to be the instrument in the hands of Krishna?
Хороший вопрос.
Good question.
А, Мы быть инструментом означает, ну, прежде всего, внутреннее настроение. То есть мы уже
We should have some sort of internal mood.
Мы совершаем какую-то деятельность, и мы можем это
We should-
делать либо как настроение связи с Богом, то есть как
We should try to do these things in a connection with God, that we're an instrument of His mercy.
Ну, как бы вот в отчужденном состоянии это делать. Поэтому первое, что нужно для того, чтобы
The first thing we need to do
быть инструментом в
to
руках
be an
Бога,
instrument in the hands of Lord
выстраивать эту внутреннюю связь с Ним.
is to configure our connection with Him, our internal connection with Him. And I'm a servant of God.
В духовной жизни быть слугой означает быть слугой, слуг.
But actually, in spiritual life, that to be a servant of God means to be the servant of the servant of the servant.
которые окружают Бога. Мы как бы вот мы становимся частью этого служения.
This is the
Вот, то есть вот это настроение, оно
take part in this service.
настроится. Поэтому у нас
But the service may help us do it on our own.
есть определенные утренние программы, где мы настраиваемся на это
That
настроение.
we
С
don't
самого
have.
раннего утра мы возносим молитвы духовному учителю.
We have this program of where we help us get in this mood.
Качества, и таким образом
We have a morning program where we talked about the different qualities of the servant of God. The servant,
милости, благословений.
we get the mercy from Him.
Мы настраиваемся на преданное служение, да, то есть
We start to
молим об этом
ask for
И потом,
devotional
когда мы
service,
выходим, как бы, вот, в жизнь,
and then when we go out into our lives,
также, да, то есть вот эти молитвы на четках, и
this
тоже просим
prayer starts to work.
служение. То есть это определенное как бы настроение тоже.
gives us a specific mood, a good mood.
Когда оно возникает, мы потом стараемся его поддерживать в жизни. И что это означает, например, в отношениях?
And what is this life? When this mood comes out, we start to influence in our lives. And what does it mean to have a relationship with this?
Я же сейчас как слуга должен действовать, как орудие.
I should be. You start to ask questions like, I should be His service right now.
Я должен или должна сказать,
You start to ask God, what should I do right now? What should I ask? What should I say?
было служением тебе.
So that this can be service for you.
Сама эта медитация уже
This
дает
meditation already gives a kind of a feeling of
жизни, когда мы вдруг попадаем в какой-то поток. Знаете, мы вдруг интуитивно начинаем чувствовать, что сказать надо, как будто из нас начинает литься.
we start to feel different things, and we start to
Ну, как бы орудием в руках Господа. И потом даже сами удивляемся, как я вообще мог это произнести.
we start to actually act naturally like this. We start to see things that are happening. It's like you can't even explain how this is
И
happening.
видно, как эти слова прямо в сердце попали человеку.
And you see how so you said something that went right to the heart of the person. And you start to understand that God is acting through us. And we start to feel happiness from this. And that we feel we're in the hands of that. And if we can orientate ourselves on the instructions of the spiritual master, on the spiritual teachings and writings, the revealed scriptures, then we can start to accept the best things for us and the best things for us, so that we can actually become servants. And we're going to start to see that this is actually what's always happening. And we'll always be growing, always developing. And we need to have the sincere desire to serve. Out of love that you're doing it, to serve. I'm serving Him. I fulfill my external obligations. But you can see it, this is all service unto the Lord. And this starts to become that you start to feel the internal management from within your heart with this. Internal guidance. Thank you very much.
Вопрос от наших зрителей. Правильно ли я
Question
понимаю, что ученик задает вопросы,
from our
чтобы развеять
spectators.
свои сомнения? Если один и тот же вопрос задается снова и снова, значит ли это, что сомнения остались?
If I feel myself asking the same question over and over again, and I have certain doubts, but I keep asking the question, but then I keep asking the question over and over again, does this mean that this doubt is staying with me?
служении или в чем-то, в каком-то
we need to understand where our doubts are. Is it in our service, or is it?
как-то развеять.
We need to separate it, understand it.
Как-то вот не возникает у меня откровения вот этого.
If it's, I'm not some sort of openness in our life, we're not some sort of,
Внутри переворачивается.
something's
Поэтому
turning around,
в это время
then
я опять могу задавать вопрос. Вот. Это,
we're
в
gonna
принципе, нормально. Мы даже видим,
ask
великие
more
личности,
questions. It's
они
okay.
иногда задают один и тот же вопрос.
Some people ask the same question.
Бхагаватам есть пример Махараджа
For example,
Юдхистхиры, который
Maharaj Yudhishthira,
вначале он задал вопрос,
he asked the question, Bhishma Dev,
как я должен управлять царством.
how should I
Бхишма Дева ему
uh,
на стрелах дает
rule the
эти
kingdom?
советы, как должно быть устроено идеальное общество, как должен
There should be the difference between me and the society. They should be together.
В седьмой песне Бхагаватам описывается, и Юдхистхира опять
And then again, when the Yudhishthira met with Narada, he asked,
хотя у него и так
how can I
все равно спрашивает, потому что
correctly do this, that?
служении. И поэтому один и тот же вопрос на разных уровнях развития
So,
может иметь разную роль.
this question, it could have one question, but it could be on different levels, and it can have different meanings in it.
Вот Махамантру эту.
Am I chanting japa correct or not? This is a question. You can get a different question at different levels.
Вы опять спрашиваете, как правильно повторять мантру?
How to correctly chant the Maha Mantra. It's the same question,
Потому что у вас
but it's different because you have different experience.
более глубинный смысл.
You want to find the deeper meaning of it all.
Не просто как четки
It's
перебирать.
not just
На
like
первом этапе нужно понять, как четки перебрать и как правильно произносить.
you need to ask.
На
Maybe at the beginning you ask how to pronounce it, and then you ask asking what's my mood when I should be chanting,
нюансы какие-то. А еще на более высоком уровне
and then even higher
какие-то будут нюансы, да? То есть
there'll be even higher nuances in this.
то есть каждый вопрос может быть как бы углубляться тоже.
Every question you can always go deeper in it.
Такой, наверное, ответ.
This is the answer I can give. Thank you.
Вставить Михайлович. Есть такой стих. Существует.
Все хорошо.
Существует два вида преданного служения: спонтанное и регулируемое.
There's
С помощью
two-
спонтанного преданного
two
служения
forms
можно
of social
достичь
service,
изначальной личности Бога Кришны,
spontaneous
а
and
с помощью
regulated. On
регулируемого преданного
the-
служения можно
from-
достичь экспансии верховной личности Бога.
from internal, from spontaneous service, we can get the person achieve the personality of God, and then that from regulated devotional service, we can get expansions of this. Is this a correct understanding of this?
Если человек остается в состоянии,
The person continues to be in the mood of regulation.
действительно, мы фактически
He won't.
в Господа читания даже на пути регулируемого преданного служения иногда чувствуем спонтанное желание петь с преданными, вот не хочется останавливаться. Это
Lord
очень
Chaitanya, even he was acting in that, but he was acting. He had within the regulation. He started to become spontaneous service.
И постепенно по мере роста преданного вот это
And as a devotee grows,
когда преданный уже просыпается рано утром, повторяет свои круги.
he wakes up and early in the morning he chants his rounds, serves the deities.
Потому что так ему духовный учитель сказал, и священник
He does this because his spiritual master said it, but he already likes it.
некой спонтанности, которая
It has a certain kind of spontaneity to it.
как бы естественно.
It becomes more natural.
Правильная вот практики садхана бхакти.
This is how sadhana bhakti works.
Правильная практика садхана бхакти.
What's it mean to correctly practice sadhana bhakti?
Правильная практика это регулярное
Is it
общение
regular,
с преданными,
regularly associating with devotees,
искренне в своем духовном пути, и в особенности старшие преданные, которые обладают вот этим духовным
with
вкусом, зрелостью.
especially associating with senior devotees that have some sort of taste for the spiritual life.
Регулярное
The second is regular
чтение Шримад Бхагаватам,
reading, reciting Srimad Bhagavatam, the composition that helps us
возвысить нашу преданность,
to raise our devotion,
это воспевание святого имени, то есть это
chanting the holy names.
такие элементы важные, которым следует преданный. Это киртан, то есть
There's different elements like singing kirtan.
Вот. И если есть вот это зрелое общение,
If you have this experienced association,
происходить что? Если есть зрелое общение,
should
то
happen if we have
осознанность.
correct association, then there should be growing understanding, realization.
Осознанная практика приводит
We have realized practice.
Когда пробуждается вкус, мы уже начинаем служить не потому, что
When the quest starts to wake up in us, then won't feel like a robot.
что нам нравится, да, то есть вот вкус есть уже.
Something starts to take us, so this means we have a taste.
Тогда, соответственно,
But if it's
быть таким
inattentive,
ритуалом, который,
it becomes just a ritual of some sorts
который просто я тащу, ну, как бы я не чувствую
that
такого,
you're just feeling dragged along.
просто как из чувства долга это делаю. То есть я могу застрять на этом уровне.
You can become stuck on this level and not go anywhere.
Общение со святыми преданными,
Even with association with holy people,
как бы переходить
we might not even become inspired by them
на осознанное служение и
if we're being inattentive,
и как бы уже тогда спонтанно.
and we won't get the level of spontaneity.
Развитие преданного Господь ему будет посылать соответствующих наставников, которые ему помогут.
But if we're sincere, the Lord will send the correct people along to us to help us go along the spiritual path.
Найдутся, он как бы будет видеть этих людей, у кого надо,
We'll start to see the spiritual teachers,
они есть. Но
that they are there for you.
где мы сейчас?
Some people will start to appear in your
Нужно
lives.
постараться сделать так, чтобы у нас было регулярное, искреннее общение с преданными.
We should try to hear sincere relationships with devotees.
Искренне идут. Вот. Нужно найти истинного духовного учителя, который
We need to
будет
find
нашим вот таким
truthful, a true spiritual master that can help us.
нас вот.
That will give us instructions to help us raise us up.
Вот. И таким образом в этом
And with
общении
this level, we'll
начать искренне практиковать преданность.
try to sincerely practice devotional service.
Постепенно это придет уже.
We'll start to grow and grow.
Потом
It'll give us different tastes and eventually give us spontaneity. Thank you very much.
Продолжаем беседу с Рамачандрапури. Можно ли сказать, что
Returning to our question about Ramachandra Puri,
что благодарность
he didn't have a question of
причина
great
критического
gratitude.
мышления, как в себе культивировать благодарность?
How can we cultivate gratitude?
Да, то есть человек, который гордый человек, он
Yes,
который
a
находится
prideful
в
person,
претензиях постоянно,
he starts to have
как бы никогда благодарность не
different-
выражает, даже если ему кто-то что-то
starts to desire different things from people and require different things from people.
все равно виноват остаешься, даже когда хорошее делаешь.
And
Благодарный
he
человек
becomes
очень трудно
ungrateful even if he's doing good things.
Но когда это такое, знаете, как болезненное эгоцентричное состояние.
This is our diseased, egocentric
Чувствует, что
position.
мы все должны быть благодарны за то, что
He thinks that everything should,
вот, что ему
but he should be grateful for everything,
он как бы ожидает, претензии есть. И даже когда
not expecting, making requirements for people.
все равно какая-то манипуляция, что
Even if we're saying this, we're thankful and we're trying to expect something. This is a sick condition.
очень важно сознательно
It's very
перестраивать
important to
действительно вот эту вот,
consciously
способность быть благодарным за то, что
consciously
уже есть. Это
be
первое качество.
thankful for everything it already has that I have.
Он понимает, что
I have that in my life. That a real disciple, a real student knows these things, and they can see these things. They're thankful for the things that are helping them grow in their lives.
Спасибо, Господь, что ты послал, что я теперь
Thank you,
могу
Lord, that you gave me these opportunities to grow.
Стаса помогает мне как бы меняться,
And
улучшаться.
this different
Вот. Быть благодарным
obstacles are helping me grow and helping me think. And these people in my lives are helping me grow.
Например, общение с искренними людьми, что у меня есть какие-то книги, которые
They have certain books that are helping me, or different people,
пути, что я
keeping me on the spiritual path,
свое имя
helping me chant the holy names of the Lord. And we're thankful for those things that we already have.
историю иногда рассказываю.
There's one story that I often tell devotees. One time a girl came
Семинар по семейным
to
отношениям.
a seminar about family relationships.
И почему она туда пришла? Потому что у
And why did she
нее
come?
не складывается жизнь, никак не может выйти замуж, там
She was having problems getting married, different things in life.
пустоты в жизни, неустроенности. И
And she was a little upset about life. And she came to this course.
что-то такое вот узнаю, что поможет мне достичь цели.
She wants to understand how to achieve her goals.
Вот какую я хочу семейную жизнь.
Oh yeah, this is what I want, a family life. Spiritual family life.
Ну, то есть у нее как бы понятие настоящей семьи произошло.
She had an understanding what an actual
У нее депрессия еще больше стала, потому что она подумала,
what an actual family is, but then she became
найти себе жениха,
depressed afterwards. That she can say, if I can't find this, how can I find this? Everything is even more difficult now that I don't see the real thing. Can't find it.
Вот, и у нее как бы такое внутри депрессия началась, что она подумала, она пойти что-нибудь съесть, и решила пойти мороженое купить, там, поесть.
She went and said, I started feeling so depressed that she went and bought some ice cream.
Вегетарианцем еще и духовным, да, то есть. И так получилось, что в очереди прямо за ней занял очередь индус.
She was in line, and then she was waiting in line for ice cream, and then there was a Hindu person waiting in line behind her. Started talking and said that, you believe it? And they became friends while they're waiting in line. And then she started to complain about her fate. That all this is wrong and this is bad. So the difference between people that are born in the West. In the West, we feel these things. I don't have this and I don't have that, and I start to have different things. But when in the East, we feel it's like we're so grateful, that thankful. God gave us this day. God gave us everything this, and then we start to grow in this thankfulness. And then her paradigm completely flipped in this moment. Something completely turned around in her life, and I understand. I have this incorrect position in life, and I want this. He started feeling. And she starts to see the gifts that God gives us. And I haven't been able to see it before that. We have some sort of expectation in the future that we can't be thankful for this. And we won't get it in the end. But if we start to feel thankful for things, thankful for the things that God gives us, then we actually start to grow. And then we're actually start to see the presence, the gifts in our life. This is a very important position to be in our lives. And we can actually start to feel thankful. After all that, we can start to feel thankful. For a long time, we haven't been able to do it, but now we can do it. We can actually start to feel the love. It's not just some sort of impersonal robot love. No, it'll actually bring you to tears when you actually see what God has given you. Maybe if there's somebody that's ruined your life, you also need to be thankful to them. And we just start to look at those things as like thankful. Our whole way of looking at things changes. Therefore, this is how it is. Thank you very much. A few more questions.
Можно ли вернуться в духовный мир без инициации? Почему Шрила Прабхупада не дал инициацию Джорджу Харрисону?
Can we go back to the spiritual world without getting initiation? Srila Prabhupada didn't give an initiation to George Harrison. Srila Prabhupada said, you already have a spiritual name. You just continue on doing what you're going to do. He wrote about his spiritual life, George Harrison. George Harrison accepted Srila Prabhupada in his heart. And his whole life he followed Srila Prabhupada. And overall he became a very serious devotee. He maybe wasn't a classic temple devotee, but Srila Prabhupada saw this position and gave him the path that he gave to him. He maybe didn't get a physical initiation, but he already accepted Srila Prabhupada in his heart. Well, can a person return to the spiritual world or not after this? With initiation. Overall, if a person doesn't want to actually accept any of the spiritual personalities, this is not the mood that will bring us to the spiritual world.
Есть определенное принятие, да, то есть личности. Вот это вот как бы
George Harrison he accepted a spiritual figure in his heart.
как принять эти наставления, учиться у них.
He wanted to accept their teachings and learn from them. Learn from a spiritual figure.
Вполне вероятно, что такое может произойти. То есть инициация в сердце уже произошла.
George Harrison already did the initiation of the heart.
Избегает инициации,
But if a person is running away from
какие-то внутри вот эти вот
initiation because he has some sort of hang-ups or something,
какое-то вот отчуждение, то тогда
some
это
sort of judgment or not accepting something,
препятствие, которое не позволит
or there's a specific kind of obstacle that will help prevent them from going back to the spiritual world.
Последний вопрос.
Last question.
Шрила Прабхупада говорит,
Srila Prabhupada said,
именно про весь дорогу в духовный мир. То есть просада можно есть много.
you can eat a lot of
Уже
prasad,
утром на лекции по читанию Чаритамрити говорилось о
but
том, что переедание может быть препятствием на духовном пути.
Srila Prabhupada said eat a lot of prasad, but we heard that eating a lot of prasad or eating too much food can be overeating can be a obstacle going back to the spiritual world.
Вот. Но к тому времени преданный, как правило,
Yes,
уже начинает
we can overeat.
какую-то внутреннюю полноту, поэтому не надо слишком
Uh,
много чувствовать счастья от воспоминаний.
When we overeat because we feel some sort of incompleteness. But as we progress in spiritual life, we'll start to feel complete. That we don't need to overeat to fill up our not feeling, our dissatisfaction.
Но поначалу, когда Шрила Прабхупада видел этих
But when Srila Prabhupada saw that
хиппи, которые
the hippies,
такими все, как бы, как это сказать, с улицы просто вот эти вот
they were just coming off the street, they said, eat, eat, eat more, eat more.
которых нужно было вот просто кормить,
Just like some kids that he needed to feed or something.
почувствовать еду, они хорошо понимали все. А
They
философию пока им трудно было.
understood that this food is wonderful, but the philosophy was still difficult for them to understand.
Счастье постоянное, да, то есть вот
That this is the actual happiness.
помогал им пробудить их.
And that this prasad helped to wake up the spiritual feelings in their heart.
Вещи, которые вот, ну, для них, для огрубевших,
But there were certain principles that maybe made them slam their heads against the wall. But in this prasad, they could already feel it.
многовато уже, тут мне надо как бы всё-таки. Тогда начинается регуляция.
And then you can start to regulate yourself.
Спасибо вам большое
Thank you
за
very much.
день, который вы уделили время нашему марафону.
Thank you for coming and giving us your time for this marathon.
Будет закрытие. Хотелось бы,
Day after tomorrow ought to be our
чтобы для всех
closing.
участников, может быть, у вас есть какие-то пожелания, как им завершать марафон.
Can you
может
please,
быть,
if you have any desires of how you like to help our participants complete, or what you want them to get from this, wish them from this marathon. I wish that everyone in this marathon to become actual. They can actually hear the Ergo Radhe. They can actually feel the waking up of actual happiness, actual spiritual life. That they become sincere disciples, sincere students, sincere desire to serve. And that we can actually make all the world around us good. Instead of trying to feel that everything's broken and everything's that we can help. It really hurts us. But if we try to serve everything around us and see everything, then we can actually grow and help everything around us. And we can work together to make it happen. And let's meditate on this together. And let's let this spiritual world, I hope that in this spiritual age that this kind of world will come to be. Thank you very much. Have a good day, everyone.